being from Western New York, what does it mean to you to cover a team that is so impactful here in our small NFL market?
There's an extra special to like make sure we do it right, make sure we do Rochester right. I think the Bills fans are as unique as ever, and I've tried to tell people that like this training camp is going to be different.
This is the Buffalo Plus Podcast, brought to you by Connors and Ferris.
All right, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus Podcast, presented by Connors and Ferris. Mike Catalana, Dan Fates with some veteran vacation. I am Jenna Cottrell. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. This episode, we're going to talk a little bit about James Cook, Josh Allen, and some ESPYs, but we also have an awesome interview with Pat Harris, a senior director at Hard Knocks, a Western New York native as well. We'll get to him in a little bit, but a very cool interview coming up about Fisher and the Bills being at back here and Hard Knocks being here.
Speaking of being back, how's it feel to be back?
Wow. I feel rest and refreshed, and honestly was a magical weekend. Little mini moon in Cape Cod. It was amazing. So thank you to everyone.
I thought it was a little much that you wore your veil into the TV station when you came into the podcast studio.
Oh, yeah, you know me.
Yeah, she's coming in, throwing flowers as she walks by.
No, everyone was so sweet and so kind. So thank you so much. And my parents probably watched the podcast of us doing the recap of the wedding about 17 times.
Yes.
So it made sure every family function was like,
we
got to watch it. Hey, Jenna, cue it. Of course, they struggle with the technological side. So it was me trying to cue it up and then walking out of the room because I
By the way,
watch.
Speaking of that, I don't even think I told you about, did I tell you about your uncle?
Which one? John?
John?
Yeah.
About him talking about the podcast?
Yeah.
So her uncle comes up to me, and Dan and I are there, and Don Alhart, one of our news anchors, a retired news anchor, at the pre-wedding.
The welcome drinks.
It was great.
Yeah.
We're sitting there talking. He comes up. The man has a very, very slight New England accent.
Yeah.
Heavy.
Yeah.
Like he is, right? He's that guy.
Yeah. Like I don't understand him.
Yes.
Half the time.
Patriots fan.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. He's from New England.
Yeah.
And he is telling me how talented Jenna is. So we're like, yeah. And then he says, this is the best. He goes, the best thing she does is that Buffalo Plus. So we start laughing. And I'm like, yeah. I go, except she's got to work with those two idiots. I don't know if he knew for sure Dan and I were the two guys on the podcast with you. I really don't know if he did.
Honestly, I could see. I could honestly see him
it was
not.
So good.
He's just locked in supporting.
Oh,
his
he
niece.
was
He's my godfather too.
He is definitely Team Jenna.
Oh,
like it was big. It was very nice.
No, that's hilarious.
Joked about us two idiots. Maybe he was like, yeah, these are two idiots. She should do it by herself. So anyhow, it was cool.
No, that's very funny. Yes, the wedding was so much fun. So thank you everyone for the kind well wishes and all that stuff. We had a great time. But all right, let's talk some Bills. I can't believe training camp is coming up, but today, or the news kind of this week, the NFL top 100 being some of the names being released. James Cook at number 89.
Yeah, I think that's a good. First of all, making the top 100 is huge.
Yeah,
for him to be recognized that way.
Yeah.
Jeremy Fowler of ESPN does this bit. It's a good one he interviews coaches and GMs and scouts, and they rank players. And position-wise, I think James Cook was 8th for running backs. You know, when you look at that list, there's some pretty good players there. It kind of fits to make the top 100. He had 16 touchdowns last year. He had a really good year. The Bills know he's a really good player. This doesn't help or hurt him in negotiations one way or the other. It's good for him. The Bills already know he's a good player. He thinks he's a good player. He should.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool for him to get recognized.
Absolutely. Like being a top 100 player is a big deal. It's his first year being in the top 100. And I think one of the things that we've talked about going back to last season was just the development that we saw from him. So to get the touchdowns and have the yards and also have this, like he is a talented player. He has been playing like it. And for him, I think it's pretty cool to be, number 89. And you're right. Like there are a lot of very good running backs in the NFL. And to have him be, top 10 on that list, I also think is what you're talking about with the Jeremy Fowler stuff. So for me, I wasn't like, oh my God, he needs to be in the 20s. But I also was like, good for him.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about the position, it has been upgraded recently in terms of, I was joking the last show, I think we talked about Saquon was like 86 or something.
Mhm.
The last time he'll be in the top 10 this year.
Yeah, I would imagine.
And, there have been Derrick Henry obviously having great years, and you still have Jacobs, and you still have Christian McCaffrey and those players. So running backs have moved up, but that makes him a top 10 running back. No
Yeah.
question. Right.
Yeah.
So I think everybody's aware of that. I don't know what impact it has. And it gets real now. We talked about this. Showed up at mandatory camp,
Mhm.
practiced, did everything. Now we'll see. And we do talk to the director of Hard Knocks about it. You'll hear that in a little bit.
Pat
But
Harris.
it will be interesting to see how James Cook is
Well,
at camp.
what is the approach
Mhm.
from him? What is the approach from the Bills? And how does this all play out? Like we have talked about all spring long. Will he come to mandatory camp? What will that look like? He did.
Yep.
He showed up. He did practice. And now this is the next step down the line of what will this look like as the Bills and James Cook figure out what the next contract will look like. Will he be on the team in 2026? We don't know that yet. But this is the next portion of where we're going in terms of, and for me, it's like, you really hope it's not a distraction.
And the thing is, not in the building. Nobody's in the building at this time, right?
Correct,
Everybody's
yeah.
taking their time off. But I wonder if there has been negotiations, or is it just sort of like they've kept it at a certain place? And then there's different negotiations, Jenna. Is there negotiations to, I'm going to play it out this year, leave it
Yeah.
at that? He's going to play. I mean, he's taking a risk being on the field in the final year of his deal, but he also wants to get $5.3 million, at least what he's scheduled for this year. And then whether the Bills would want to still try to work out, I don't know if they would want to make a different 1-year deal.
Mhm.
Causes some other issues with in terms of compensation later. But at the same time, or do they still have conversations about a longer term deal?
That will be one of the first questions we ask at training camp
Oh, yeah.
is, did you talk to James Cook over the summer or after mandatory camp? What were those conversations like? And we love James.
Yeah, they'll say they love him. And his options are show up and play like he did.
Mhm.
Don't show up, get fined. Show up and not practice. To me, I actually think that's, for the team, that's maybe the worst of the three.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you're there, but you're not there. So we have no indication yet. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. All right. Another thing to note, a little interesting, the ESPY is coming up.
Yeah.
Josh Allen nominated for 2 awards, Best NFL Player and Best Male Athlete.
Yeah. I mean, the best male athlete, that's kind of cool to get
Yeah.
nominated for that.
Best Male Athlete
Yes.
at
I don't
the
know.
ESPYs is, that's a big
Yeah. I'd have to look at the list to see who's in there. And then at the same time, best NFL player. I mean, he did just win the league MVP. That's a different voters. People vote on the ESPYs, but yeah, it's cool. Hey, listen, it's the ESPYs. It's doesn't really mean anything, but it's cool when Josh Allen gets recognition like that. So
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that, like, after winning the MVP, the Bills going to be on Hard Knocks, like, everything is ratcheting it up in terms of the spotlight on Buffalo, and so
Yeah.
I think it's not nothing, let's put it that way, right?
No.
And, like, the fact that, again, maybe just call me, like, naive, but to be talking about the ESPY's best male athlete, best NFL player, and be talking about a Bills player in that
Yeah.
position is still pretty wild to me.
Well, you mentioned Hard Knocks. We might as well get to it because
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah, it
if
was
we
great.
do say so.
All right, let's toss to our interview with Pat Harris, Senior Director. All right, a very, very special guest joining us, Pat Harris, Senior Director, Hard Knocks. Pat, we want to thank you so much. And I want to let everyone know as well, very special because you are a Western New York guy, Penfield native. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you both for having me. No, I'm very excited to be starting training camp very soon.
All right. And I know for you, like, you're from this area. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your fandom of an NFL team? Obviously, growing up in Western New York, like, what is this opportunity like coming home and also doing this for Hard Knocks at your job? And so many Bills fans we know are looking forward to this.
To be honest, it's very surreal. I've done Hard Knocks. This will be my 10th year in the directing role. I've always kind of had this pipe dream maybe would happen. I'd get to go and just be a part of camp. But the fact that this is my first year as a senior director, going back home to Rochester, my dad and grandfather went to Fisher. I grew up going to camp. So I'm sure I've had different moments leading up. I'm sure once I actually get there and I'm on the field, it'll be kind of a very surreal moment. But I'm super excited. I think it's an incredible team, incredible organization. It's a kind of a fun year to do this with them.
So, Pat, a lot of people were a little surprised that the Bills were picked based on the way the rules used to be and where they were, and they get picked. Were you like the guy in the back of the room or calling up Roger and saying, hey, this would be a good year for the Bills because I'm ready to go home and do this for Hard Knocks?
I wish I had that seat at the table because I'm sure plenty of years I've said they'd be great. Things are looking good all throughout, my time doing it. And I couldn't tell you why this was outside of, I think the Bills are a very prominent team and people just want to know more about them. So I wasn't privy to the actual conversations that went on, but, from my somewhat in the know perspective, they have a lot of intrigue to them. And I think they're just going to be a fascinating team to follow for the summer.
So let's talk a little bit about the intrigue in terms of storylines. Now, here we are a little ways out before camp actually begins. Are there already storylines you guys think you have or you have, or does it develop as you start to get content when the camp starts?
It's a little bit of a hybrid. Like we'll do kind of our homework, we'll research, social medias and kind of get familiar with the team, with the players, coaching staff. So we kind of come in with, hey, there's some intrigue here or there, whether it's a position battle, a player, a new piece, an old piece. But a lot of it too, I think, especially being the directors, once we get there, you want to meet people, you want to see what's happening. We don't want to be kind of pigeonholed to say, well, no, we saw 3 weeks ago that this was a story. We have to cover it if it's not a story anymore. Or if a person jumps out with a great personality or something unique happens, we don't want to shy away from doing that. So I think you want to come in and do your homework and do your research, but ultimately you just kind of get there and just kind of see what unfolds. We are kind of, we're covering training camp and it's kind of documenting what happens.
I know it's a living, breathing thing. And you're right. I can imagine like you have ideas going in and then from there things change with just covering the team and seeing what evolves. But for you, like being from Western New York, knowing what training camp means to the area, knowing what the Bills mean to the area and having the background of knowing that, what does it mean to you to cover a team that is so impactful here in our small NFL market?
I think there is like a different level of pride. Obviously, I want to put out a good product every year I do this. I love doing it, but there's an extra special to like make sure we do it right, make sure we do Rochester right. I think the Bills fans are as unique as ever, and I've tried to tell people that like this training camp is going to be different. Like the people that show, we've had other years where the Hard Knocks allure kind of brings in additional people. Like it's not going to be any different this year. There's going to be tons of people every single practice. So I'm trying to convey that to them and figuring out what's a special way or like a unique way we can kind of show the fans in Rochester and then ultimately show, the Buffalo side. But I think there's a little bit of a different variable there with their home. People aren't going to be coming to practice once they get to Buffalo.
I know, like for fans too, there won't be, I can't imagine anyone jumping off of tables at the parking lots in Fisher. But for you, like, how do you approach that fan aspect? Because like you said, also with the Bills being away for training camp at Fisher and just having the crowds that they have always had, does that add an extra element to how you prepare for production wise things?
It's definitely like an additional character. I think that's something we're factoring in to figure out, okay, I can at least give insight of what I know of how it happens, how fans get to practice, what it looks like, where they're standing. I can give that insight from personal experience, but I think it's an additional character that we'll probably introduce in one of the earlier episodes to say, hey, Bills Mafia is this, and it's, it shows up like this for game day, but here's training camp. A lot of people haven't seen what that's like, haven't seen, all the shuttle buses coming in, the people parking in the parking lots, all that stuff. So I think it's nice knowing ahead of time to figure out, okay, how can we show this in like an artistic way as well, and not just, hey, here's a camera, here's a big wide shot of a lot of people. Let's find some cool, unique ways, and whether it's getting to know some more fans on a more personal level. I've got the chance to work with a few of the iconic Bills fans over the year and more recently, but I think it's thinking of it like that instead of let's just be there and just documenting. Let's try to put a little bit more creative element to it.
Yeah. All right. So one thing fans have worried about, at least talking to us, they're like, oh, Hard Knocks is coming. And if anything happens, maybe even the James Cook situation, whether he's at camp or he's practicing or whatever it happens to be, the way it actually makes it on the air. So if I have this correct, the team does have a final say. And how does that process work?
They do. It's something we'll sit down and watch with them, and we kind of, we all know what's going on. We'll show them the show, and a lot of times because it's a partnership, we all kind of know what's going on. There's conversations that are going on before, after, during. So we really don't want anything to be a surprise when we show them the show ultimately on Monday. So it's not that much of a challenge. I think it's more talked about as like a huge concern. I think from experience being a part of the show, I've sat in on the meetings with coach and GM and PR people with previous teams. Not a lot has changed. I think it's certain people are more mindful, or certain teams are more mindful of stuff, whether it's, calls or cadences or things like that. And ultimately we want to do right by the players. Like we're not looking to make people look bad and almost be like a TMZ type show. That's really not our brand, not our style. So I think it's never been an issue before, but the team ultimately will sit down and watch with us, usually that Monday morning before the show goes to air, ultimately on Tuesday.
So the team watches with you. Is that like Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, Terry Pagula? Do teams normally have like I would say a representative, maybe Pete Gwelly, somebody from the team? How does that normally work? And can you tell us how that would work with the Bills?
I don't know for sure what they want to do yet. I think that that Sean and Brandon will watch in some capacity. It's kind of different for each team. We've sat in, I've watched stuff with coach and GM in previous years. Other times coach didn't really watch and he knew his assistant would watch and tell him. So obviously PR is a huge piece in that and a huge partnership with everything. But I think it's still TBD of who actually will be in there. But I think a lot of people will get eyeballs on it. It really helps in today's modern world. It used to be we'd get a deck, a hard drive that we'd have to set up here. And that fear of, is what I'm plugging in actually going to work?
Yeah.
Real. Now it's very much, you get the links. It's much easier. So there's not as much of a concern, but it makes me feel a little older knowing I've seen that whole process.
Yeah. Because you're really old. You too. That's what I got to hear about, right? Go ahead.
We love to make fun of Mike's veteran experience.
Yeah.
No, for you, like when you show the teams something, if they were to say, hey, this we don't really like what is the turnaround time for you and your team to edit things and make it different? Because I would imagine that also adds an element of stress in there a little bit too.
Yeah, I mean, we're cutting stuff in real time. I think we usually try to say we keep it as relevant as we can. It's a lot different now in the social media world. You kind of have to be, but we try to say, at a certain point we have to say, all right, we can't keep putting stuff in if something happens Tuesday. We really try to avoid putting that in the show just because the logistics get into play.
Yeah.
The latest we've put something in is when Antonio Brown showed up to Raiders camp. I think it was Tuesday morning, and that was West Coast time. So that was literally, here's the clip, here's the 2 shots of it, here's where it is, boom, it's in the end of the show. So we kind of have like a rough eyeball of our cutoff time and kind of see what's going on within the week. But like games and stuff that'll play on Sunday night, we will have a whole army of people working through the night to get that logged, edited, get in front of the team to take a look at, and that'll be in the next show.
Yeah. One of the things I love about what you all do at Hard Knocks is like you obviously focus on the main characters, and I'm sure there will be a lot of talk about, Josh Allen and his offseason, what he brings. But I also love how you find some of the kind of underbelly guys who maybe you don't hear about, the guys trying to make the roster, the training camp darlings. Like what goes into finding those players, and how does that kind of evolve for you? Like, because I feel like everyone obviously has a story that makes it to the NFL, but there's some really interesting players that you guys have been able to highlight over the seasons.
A lot of times, like we might have a little bit of an idea, some of that pre-prep research I was talking about, but a lot of it's once we get to camp, and whether it's building a relationship with a guy or you start to gather elements from people that aren't him, whether it's players, coaches, meetings, where people are talking about him, good, bad, anything, where it's all of a sudden you kind of say, all right, we have a segment, we have a pod, we can build off of this guy. And then I think it's a lot of times just what players are comfortable with. We've found in recent years, players obviously are familiar with the show, so they kind of see some of the benefits that they can have from it and are more willing to be open with us, knowing that we've had guys that have been cut and they found that being a part of Hard Knocks helped them get an additional piece. So they wanted us to continue that story. So it's all different each year. Again, we come in with an idea, but I think we see what players kind of pop, in all different elements to kind of make them characters.
Yeah. I think about these moments that have happened in Hard Knocks all the years watching it. Guys involved with the Bills, like 7-Eleven, always open, Rex with the snacks, all these guys that ended up here. Are you guys bummed that Mac Hollins isn't with the Bills anymore?
Yes. Yeah. We had Adrian Colbert last year, who again was a no shoes on the field guy. So just from that alone, like, he was very compelling and an incredible person with our crew. And it sounds like Mac would have been the exact same, but he became Adrian last year, became friends with almost everybody on our crew pre-practice and everything. So you always love guys like that. And they certainly are unique. Like, they're must-see TV in a lot of ways.
So that leads me to my next question. Are there guys like pushing to be like, hey, I'm a good story here, right?
Gosh.
Are they just being friendly? Because we know there's going to be media people doing that with you guys.
Oh yeah, we can tell.
Because everybody wants to be on HBO. But like, do you think the players sometimes are like, hey, I got a good story here. Come follow me.
You definitely can sense the guys who want the attention, and it's crazy how it always works that when we know you're a little too thirsty and want it, we usually shy away, but ultimately never plays up because they're like staring right at the camera, trying to like make a joke or act, and that's not, they're football players, not actors in a lot of ways, so it never comes across as genuine. But we've had guys over the years that definitely didn't shy away from the camera, so that's cool.
That's really cool. I love it. Yeah, I can imagine that. It almost, you're like, you want to go to the players that open up to you, but in an authentic way. It makes total sense. Are there any spots for you that you're like, being like a Rochester guy, that you're like, ooh, I want to highlight some of the local spots, like you said, the shuttles, but is it like Pittsford Dairy when the team all gets ice cream together? Is there anything like that kind of that stands out in your head?
No question. I think that's the stuff I want to see, like Pittsford Dairy is one. And knowing enough, I've had family members run into Bills players there. So finding ways to say, all right, let's highlight some of the places they're going to be. I put one of my friends to work with giving our crew food recommendations, and it's been a bit since I've like lived there and seen what's changed. So for me with our crew, I obviously want to show them, all the positives and stuff within the area and all the new stuff that's come up that I don't even know about. But there's definitely, I think, just trying to, and even highlight the campus. I think just seeing different pieces of the campus and the area. Even I think some of the B-roll stuff we get at least helps knowing some of the areas to go and kind of capture some of that nice footage.
Yeah, you seem like a very humble guy. Your family must be thrilled that you're going to be back. Like, what has that been like, kind of their love and their excitement? Because I can imagine, like, for you, it's coming back home and doing a job that so many people are excited about. Like, what has that aspect been like? It's
fun. Like, both my mom and my dad, I think, if they could show up every single day and follow me around, they 100% would. That has been brought up many times.
Yes.
And it's been fun for my friends, I think, because they're all fans of the show. They know what I've done for the past few years. So it's cool in that sense. It's, I think, going to be figuring out like the work-life balance of, okay, we have long days and I want to see them. So figuring out like that right blend. But it'll be nice to just, even because I haven't been at home for a summer. My son was born and I was off that one, but basically I started in Houston. I've been going ever since. So I'll kind of have a bit of a hybrid and, pop over to a family party or something if I can. So I think that'll be really cool, but I'm hoping to get them out to camp a few times. And then I think friends have all put in for tickets. So it'll be fun to just like be out on a random Wednesday and I see somebody that I haven't seen in 10 years.
Yeah.
I think that'll be fun.
Yeah. That'll
Celebrity.
be cool. Yeah, exactly. You know what I did want to ask you about? When I have seen it, even though I've been in a lot of training camps going back to Fredonia, there are parts you guys get to that we never would. Any media person, we don't get there. Even the team media people don't. How does that work? Are you guys, you're not in the room with the GM or when they're having the meetings, or are you? Maybe at times you have the cameras there getting, whether it's an individual conversation or maybe a group setting. And then are you watching that in real time when that's going on?
So yeah, we have a whole sea of robotic cameras that'll just sit up in the corner, and we did like a whole scout, figure out where logistically we want them. And then they're all, human operated. So we have somebody that has a big display, that have joysticks where they're controlling them. So that's where we record those moments. Hit or miss if I'm there listening in real time. It kind of depends on what we have going on. But a lot of times somebody will be sitting there to know kind of what's going on and how we want to capture it. But that's, I think, the benefit of the show. I feel very lucky to kind of be in places that most people aren't. I think that's what we want the show to kind of look like and take you in a place that, a team media or another show might not be able to take you, just to add that unique element to it.
You know what I was thinking of is that you've had, because of the way the rules were, the type of team that was in there, like, when you were looking at the quarterbacks, usually it's teams that haven't had that much success is the way it maps out for this. Josh Allen is, MVP of the league, massive star. Now, I know a lot of times the quarterback becomes a big thing. Is there a way you think you need to not make it too much about Josh? Does that make any sense at all? Because people do know some about him, but the way he is at training camp, you'll see. Like, he is the happiest guy in the world to be a Fisher. It seems like he loves every part of it. But he is as big a superstar as you probably would have on a training camp Hard Knocks.
No question. I think we've had those conversations that not only is with him, but with the team itself. We've probably never could probably say that, I guess, the Ravens the year after they won the Super Bowl, like the first show, but in recent memory, they're by far the best team we've had. I think the only equivalent is when we had Aaron Rodgers and the Jets and just the caliber of player that he was. And going back and rewatching those shows, I think you see just the sheer football footage we're able to capture when it's an elite quarterback, offense, defense. Like, you're going to get some incredible plays that I think we can't forget about. In some years, it's a quarterback controversy or a battle, or, the receivers are trying to get chemistry. So it's hit or miss. If you get incredible footage every single day, I think we are going to get that every single day. So it's the balance of letting the person who doesn't know much about Josh get to see a new side of him, but also saying, this is a team. And I think there's lots of people to highlight. We don't want to make it, the entire Josh Allen episode, but he'll be a big focal point as he should be.
Yeah,
I'm sure Josh wouldn't want that either.
No,
like, knowing that type of leader that he is, he wants everyone else to get some shine.
But he might say, "Follow me to Oak Hill" when he gets the off day.
That might be
free. Whenever he says that.
You know what? I would say this, and I really do love. I've always loved this show, and even though we're covering training camp, it's kind of cool to see the other places. It'll be really fun for us. I think we've been joking about the iconic shots you get. And if you guys think of them, that we think of the sprinklers going off, right? The players walking in, it just has that feel. Also, Liv Schreiber's voice is now, it's so connected with it. Do you guys think about that? Or is everything like I joke that about the sprinklers, but it feels like you see something like that in almost every one of your training camp shows?
We definitely keep it in the back of our heads. A lot of times you'll capture something and you're like, I don't know how this makes sense with this, but we'll write something. It'll when it's said in that voice, anything can tie in.
It sounds so good.
Seriously, though.
It's great. So that's it's almost like a crutch in a way that you have that you can lean on that. In terms of shots, like we try to, you always need those like segue shots and the stuff that doesn't really mean anything, but it's happening, and figure out ways. All right, if we did this last year, how can we make it look different or cooler this year? So for a lot of times, I feel like we almost got away from some of the sprinklers because like you're doing it, and now we're like, we haven't done it in a while. Maybe there's a cool
good,
but it's iconic.
So good.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you don't want to lean away from kind of your bread and butter in a way, but we're always trying to like almost one up what the previous year did, and what operators always want to try new thing. And now we have new toys and new drones and all the stuff like that we can say, all right, let's make this extra awesome.
Yeah. Pat, we really appreciate your time. Just a couple more questions. And I know you just talked about the new toys. Like, for the people who are watching at home, like, what is the size of the crew? How many cameras? Like, if you know kind of the details of like the behind the scenes, because I think people are also really interested in how you do capture this part of the preseason.
Yeah. So our crew will be about 35 people, all different variations from, production coordinators to camera assistants, PAs, everybody. So we'll have, in terms of practice, we have about 8 cameras that'll be on the field in some capacity. We have crews that'll have camera and audio paired up together, usually doing a lot of our wires, and we'll have, a top camera, an end zone camera, an action camera. So we always say it comes out between that, the meetings, the robotic cameras. It's usually about 300 hours of footage we shoot for every 1 hour that makes air. So, and then I say that 35 is on site. I would say, I mean, I don't even know if we're getting into the 100 to 200 people back here in terms of all the different audio, visual, loggers, people actually putting the show together. There's a whole army back at NFL Films in Mount Laurel that basically get all that footage ingested in. We do a very diligent job logging everything. So you can search for that shot of Josh's touchdown to Coleman from week 1 that you want to put in to do as a flashback, whatever it is. So it's a big lift, big effort, by far one of the busiest projects we have. It used to be the busiest, and then we decided to do Hard Knocks with 14 win season, so that kind of trumped everything there. But it is, I mean, it really does take an army, and I think it amazes me every time we sometimes get shows out and shoot a game Sunday night, and somehow it's airing in the show on Tuesday.
As someone who does a little, like, we obviously shoot our own stuff. I just can't imagine. I mean, it's the video in itself is incredible, but then just the amount that you have and the precision in which you edit it with, it is really impressive. Yeah. I think my last question is just like, with the fact that the players, are staying in the dorms, and that much more, I would imagine, content wise, because you have the interactions that they have, and normally speaking, when some guys would be back at home or whatever, like, how do you look at that? Because there is, I'm sure, it's just so much of an angle you can take with just the camaraderie aspect in a way that's, a little bit different than most other NFL training camps.
Yeah, I think culture is a big thing that helps being a Bills fan, knowing that's a big importance to them. Every team says it. I think they really lean into it. So we want to convey that as much as we can, and knowing that the easiest way to do that is seeing what it's like to go away to a college campus. I think from what Brandon Beane said in a meeting, that only like 8 or 9 teams do that. So it's pretty unique. It's been a while since we've had this. So I think that's one thing that's different about this camp. We want to lean into it a little bit to say, this is kind of how this team built its culture, by going away for a little bit and figuring out some of the organic ways of what that means to the average person. And it's not all on the football field. It's different pods away, a meeting here, sitting on the quad there, all that different stuff. I think we want to be as many places as we can to kind of capture all that camaraderie that's building.
Yeah. All right. And last thing for me, we talked about having a team like the Bills in it. I don't know all trivia from Hard Knocks, but I don't believe, have you ever had a team win the Super Bowl when they've been on Hard Knocks that year?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
It kind of stems back to what you said of the circumstances previously, but we're due.
So if it happens with your Bills, they're going to all be lining up to be on Hard Knocks. You won't have to worry about it. Like, everybody's going to say, call us next, right?
That's the hope. I pray that is the case for all. It's a good personal work. It would be the best of both worlds. But let's hope we're trending in that way.
Right. Awesome. Pat, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Pat Harris, Senior Director, Hard Knocks, Penfield native, coming to Western New York for Bills training camp at Fisher this summer. Pat, thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Enjoyed doing it.
Thank you. That was awesome. I feel bad. I think we maybe took up more time than I could have asked 2 billion questions, honestly.
Yeah, and there are individual questions, but I do think the main thing, the way he said it, was like, they don't want to go in there going, we're going to do a story on this guy. We're going to see how it plays out. They want to see how the players interact. Now, they'll know some stuff. They may have an idea of some young player. Might be Maxwell Hairston. He's the number 1 pick. But that's kind of obvious in a way, unless there's something about it. That's what the thing they have in this show is. They're going to get Josh Allen. They're going to get Sean McDermott. They're going to get those things. They can pick people and say, no, this is the guy I like for this. It'd be easy to say, just pick the best players. I think they can always talk to the best players, but I think they're going to find those other things. And be ready, fans, if you're at camp, because those cameras are going to be out.
I feel like Bills fans always bring it,
yeah,
like with the signs or whatever. But I think it's going to be fever pitch this season with all the cameras. I did think it's cool.
That's
like
a lot of cameras.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
You didn't interrupt me, but you read my mind.
Sort of did. I just sort of, it was like merging traffic there.
Let's say we're just following. It's everything's normal. No, I will say, I think it's just going to be so cool. And to have a guy like Pat being from here is just, to me, it's like next level cool.
So he's from Penfield, which when you're at training camp and where we are, it's right down the road.
Yeah.
Like it's close to Pittsford. It's Rochester is where it is. And, we asked him beforehand, like, are you? And he's like, oh yeah, Bills fan.
Yeah.
And I went to games. Dad had season tickets. Like, they're all in. Cool. And he's excited that everybody knows, because this is the Bills. that he's covering.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool. Like we've all been in this spot too. There's being wanting a team to do well. There's people who are fans, but when it's work, like, and this guy's going to be busy.
Oh yeah.
Like this is, I mean,
him
they've done
saying
it. Yeah.
300 hours for every 1 hour shot
That they put on. Yeah.
That's an insane amount of like raw footage to go through.
And they have a team of people, but there still has to be a vision from the main idea. And they got to do all this and then get it approved. I shouldn't even say approved. I don't think it's like no, yes, no. Can you, I don't think it's that. I think it's the team looks at it and says, we don't like that part.
Yeah.
Can you take that out? I don't think it's contentious. Like they're not going to be yelling because if the team says take that out, they're going to take it out.
Yeah.
I think these guys know enough.
I think it's more collaborative.
Yes. And they just want to make sure somebody doesn't come across not authentic to it. Maybe, there's certain things they don't like. They don't like fights.
Yeah.
If there's a fight at camp, they may go, can you cut that down a little bit? You can show a few seconds of it. We don't need 40 seconds of the guys swinging at each other. Those kind of things, like the things they restrict us from doing.
Yes.
At least we'll get to see them on film that they do. And I cannot wait to see the stuff.
Oh no, absolutely.
And our plan is to do a recap of each episode on the Buffalo Plus show.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was our plan, but
I think we talked about it before. Maybe we talked about it
I was a little
without
busy,
you.
to say. I don't remember. But I mean, it makes total sense.
Yeah, why not? Because we're going to be like, oh, because we're there the entire time, but we don't see this stuff.
No, some of the stuff, some of the access is.
They are in the building. They're in the damn building. Well, they do have NFL in their name.
That's fair.
NFL Films, which is awesome. Like
NFL
legendary.
Films does absolutely.
Tremendous work. So
and probably some spotlight on Pittsford Dairy.
Yes.
Love that.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm so excited. This is so cool.
It'll be fun. I think it'll be fun. Now.
And hold on, one thing. You talked about it in our interview, but like the Bills are an excellent team.
Yeah.
And Hard Knocks is getting to cover them. A lot of people are like, oh, the curse of Hard Knocks. It's like Hard Knocks has traditionally covered the teams that obviously by nature were struggling.
Yeah.
Whereas this is a totally different franchise.
And even the players, like, yes, he's right. It was Aaron Rodgers, but it's like this version of Aaron Rodgers. At the end, he's still a starting quarterback, but he's at the end of his career where you get Josh Allen, prime, MVP, superstar, more commercials.
I bought that sleep aid.
Did you really?
I did. It didn't do anything, but also I took it the night before.
So
I took it the night before the wedding.
Oh, for God's sakes. That's the night you tried it out?
That's why I feel like I need to give it another.
Are you going to tell Josh it didn't work?
I was a little anxious that night. Not anxious, but like excited.
Okay.
But yeah, I did buy it.
This would be something I want to ask you this. My daughters were telling me.
What?
Carly, about spraying. Is it
lavender?
Magnesium? Yeah.
Oh, magnesium or lavender?
On your feet?
Oh, I don't know. I'm allergic to lavender, so I don't do that. But
who's allergic to lavender?
I don't know. I get like a rash on my like wherever. Yeah.
So they were telling about that.
Also, hold on. Funny story about that. It just irritates my skin. And for the longest time, my mom would buy like soap for the bathrooms, always lavender. I was like, Mom, I told you that it bothers my skin. She's like, it's fine.
Val didn't care. So Josh's stuff doesn't work, is what you're saying.
I did not say that. I tried it once and it did not work, but it was probably because I was so excited I couldn't sleep.
And he's doing the Snickers stuff now.
Oh, I didn't see that.
He's a Snickers guy. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
That actually is. No, I'm more of a Twix person now, actually. The Snickers used to be my favorite for a long time.
With Josh, you're now 0 for 2 on what he's. And I do not believe you own a car from
West Her. No, but I would be interested, West Her. My lease is coming up, so might need to check them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This might go out on a limb, but I don't think I'm going to tell Josh that I didn't have success.
It didn't work?
Yeah. I think I'll probably keep that close to the vest.
So that product for Josh, that product is successful when the check clears. That's like the old saying about a surgery. It was an old Bill Walton line where it's successful surgery when the doctor gets paid. So in his case, Josh is like, oh yeah, this stuff is great.
I'm going to try it again. I'll give an
maybe
updated.
on the non-night before your wedding.
Afterwards, I was like, that was probably pretty stupid. 'Cause I just,
What if it
I was
knocked
like-
you out the whole day? You're like I can't
drowsy.
get up.
I
then-
can't already keep my
And
eyelids
then
up. let alone-
you read the directions. And you're like, oh, I took way too much of this stuff.
Honestly, they were really tasty. I will say, you're supposed to only have one, and I did take two.
And it still didn't knock you out?
No, but again, I think I was just so excited.
Okay.
It was,
So
yeah.
it works great unless you're excited.
Unless you're getting married the next day.
Okay.
No, I will give an updated review. But
Okay.
very tasty. I got the.
Well, that's good.
I think it's
always what you want first.
for me.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's always the food.
Okay. All right. This went sideways.
Yeah.
I can't say I'm shocked. But
All right. We'll save credit to me for next week when Dan is back.
yeah, when Dan is back.
He's
this is
on his
good because I did not
vacations.
prepare a credit to me.
Yeah. Well, it's been a lot about you anyhow.
Yeah, that's way too much about me. Truly. There's that. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. For Mike Catalana and Dan Fates, who's enjoying vacation, I am Jenna Cottrell. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. We will catch you next time here on the Buffalo Plus channel, presented by Connors and Ferris.
This is the Buffalo Plus Podcast, brought to you by Connors and Ferris.